Hey, hi guys. In today's session, we'll understand the concept of exception handling through programming. So, as we know, there are total 5 keywords to handle the exception in Java. So, first one is try, catch, finally block, throw, and throws. So, these are the 5 keywords. With the help of these keywords, we can handle the exception in Java. So, in today's session, we are planning to cover this try and catch block. So I will write a syntax for try and catch block. So syntax will be like this: try and then opening bracket and then closing bracket. In this block, we will keep the risky code. While writing a program, I'll explain you what will be the risky code. So this is the syntax of try block. Now I'll write a syntax for catch block. So here we will keep handling code which you want to handle. Handling code. We'll see while writing a script. So catch block always we will use along with this try block. So this is the syntax of try and catch block. Try opening bracket and then we will keep here risky code and then we will close this bracket and after that we can use this catch block. Right. Now I will write one simple program. There I will explain you how we can use try and catch block. So package I already have created. Now I am going to create a class with the name of exception handling in Java. So class is created now. Now I'll write a main method. See. So let's say I want to print some numbers here. So how we can print number or you can print anything here. But as of now I am printing, let's say number 1. And again I want to print number 2 and after that let's say I'm taking some variables, taking a variable a and storing here some value. Let's say I'm storing a value 50 and one more variable I'm taking b is equal to 0 and I will take one more variable that is c. Right now I want to divide these two numbers a and b. So how we can divide? C is equal to A divided by B. Now I want to print the number, the result of this dividation. So after dividing, whatever the number will come, it will print. So let's print the number of C, value of C. So this line number of code will print result of this C after dividing. So let's say 1 and 2 I have printed already. Now I want to print number 3 and 4 as well. So here I am printing number 3 and one more number I want to print, that is 4. Right. So let's run this program. So as of now, we are not able to see any single error in this program, right? Means exception is there in this program, but compiler is not able to check that exception. I have explained you in the previous session checked exception and unchecked exception. So this is called unchecked exception. If compiler is not able to find out that exception and that compiler is not able to handle that exception, that means that is called unchecked exception. Here we have an exception, but compiler is not able to check that exception. So if I'll run this program, then we will get an error. It will throw an exception, but compiler is not able to check that exception. So that kind of exception is called unchecked exception. See the definition here I have written. So if I'll run this program, then it will throw an exception. See, it is throwing an exception. So it is printed number 1, number 2, but it is not printed number 3 and 4, because before that it is throwing an exception, and it is after throwing an exception, it is this program got terminated. So once program get terminated, this line number of code will not be executed, right? So whenever there is an exception, the method in which exception occurs will create an object, and that object will store three things. One is exception name. See the exception name, three things will store. One is exception name, second one is description. This is a description. We are divided by 0, right? If any number you will divide by 0, then it will print exception, it will throw an exception. So it is saying this is the description, that's why your program is get terminated. So this is the description. And third one is stack trace. Stack trace means it is saying, it is explaining where your program get terminated, the line number of code. It is saying exception handling in Java class. This is the class name, and in this class line number 9 there are some exception. So line number 9 here. So once we are trying to divide 50 by 0, so it is throwing an exception, right? So wherever what program will do, what JVM will do, so whenever we get any this kind of exception, so in which method you have created program, right? Wherever it is throwing an exception, so that method will create one object, and that object will pass to JVM, and JVM will pass to default exception handler, and default exception handler will print the exception. This is printed by default exception handler. And before passing to default exception handler, JVM will terminate this program. It will terminate here only, right? So once it will terminate the program, remaining code, remaining program will not be executed. So to handle this kind of exception, we are using try and catch block, throw and throws, right? Keyword. So what I want to use try and catch block, so that if I'll use try and catch block, then my remaining program will be executed. So see, I have explained you the syntax of try and catch block. So what we are saying, under the try block we are keeping the risky code. So as now we are aware the line number of 9, we have an exception, right? So this line number of code we will keep under the try block. So let me use here try. So this risky code we are keeping inside the try block. This is the risky code. These code is risky code. So that's why we are keeping inside the try block, right? So after try, we will have to use catch block. Catch block here we will use. So what was the syntax here? Catch, under the catch it will be exception class name, exception class name, and then reference variable name. So here we will have to keep some exception name. So I will put here exception, and then reference variable I am taking E. So here we can use the handling code which you want to handle. So here let's say I want to print some message. Let's say unable to divide the numbers or number of A and B. So if it is not able to divide the number A and B, then only it will come under catch block. If it is able to handle it, then it will not move into catch block. So now if I'll run the program, then we will get an exception, but remaining code will be executed. Let's run this program and see the output. See. So as of now, again, it is not able to handle this. So if this code is correct, then it will not move under this catch block, but it is not able to handle this. That's why it is moving under this catch block and it is printing unable to divide the number of A and B. But after that, code is not get terminated. After that, it is moved into the line number 15 and it is executed this line number 15 and 16 code, and it has been printed the number 3 and 4. So that is the reason we are using the try and catch block, so that if we are getting any exception on any particular line, then program will not be terminated. It will go inside the catch block and it will print the message, and after that it will moved into the remaining code and it will be executed the remaining code. So this is the use of try and catch block. So I hope you understand try catch and without try catch. I have showed you without using try and catch and after using the try and catch block. Now, so this is unchecked exception. This is arithmetic exception which is not checked by the compiler. It is checked at the runtime. So that's why we called it unchecked exception. This is called unchecked exception which is checked at runtime. Now I'll create one more program. I'll create one more class. So let's say that was the unchecked exception. Now we can see the checked exception. So I'm creating a class with the name of checked exception. Checked exception in Java. Again, I'll create one main method. Let's say I want to use this file input stream. Taking one reference variable is equal to new file input stream, and now we'll have to import it. So we are not getting an option to import, so here you can write it import Java. So this file input stream class is belong to IO package, IO dot file input stream package. Now I'll provide some path here, random path which is not correct. Exception. This path is not correct. I have given randomly. But still compiler is saying here exception can occur. So compiler is saying you will have to use either throws keyword or else you can use try and catch block. So here it is checked by the compiler. Compiler is saying maybe your file is not available at this path which you have given, right? So this is called checked exception because it is checked by the compiler. Compiler has checked and compiler is saying you can use the try and catch block, else you can use the throws keyword because maybe your file is not available at this path. So this is called checked exception. If I'll use here try and catch block, see, I have used try and catch block, right? So compiler keep this code under this try block because this is a risky code. Still, this path is not correct, but exception has gone right now because we have used this try and catch block. So this is checked by the compiler. So that's why it is called checked exception. See here, checked exception are the exception that are checked and handled at compile time. See, this file exception is checked by the compiler and it is been handled by the compiler only. This kind of exception is called checked exception. So this is an exception name, exception class name, file not found exception, and this is the reference variable. And this is the method of exception. We'll see exception method as well. So as of now, this file path is not correct, but it is handled by the compiler. Compiler has checked and compiler told us that here error can occur, exception can be occur. So that's why we kept this code under this try and catch block. Now if I'll run this program, it will throw an exception. See, what exception? File not found exception we are getting. And it is saying the system cannot find the file specified because this is not correct. I have given the random. Now what I'll do, I'll correct it. I'll create one folder here with the name of exception. And I'll create one notepad here. And this notepad, I'll write here hello exception handling, and I'll save this program and I'll keep inside the folder which we have created, this exception folder. Now I'll take the path of this exception. This is the path location. We can pass this location under this. So now exception, and then after that we'll have to give this file name slash file name dot txt, that is txt file. So now this file is correct. Now if I'll run this program, then it should not throw an exception. See, now it is not throwing an exception because it is getting this file. Now this file path is correct. And if I'll give something here, let's say I'm changing this doc. Now I'll run this program again. Now it is throwing an exception because this is txt file, not document. This notepad format is txt. This format is txt only. So if you are passing doc, then it will throw an exception. Again, if you pass txt, then exception will remove. So checked exception will check only. It will not be handled. It is only checked and handled at runtime only. So checked exception will check and give you the warning, means there can be occurred the exception. So you can use a try and catch block and handled at the time of run. So this is the checked exception and unchecked exception we have seen in this program. This is the unchecked exception. So far we have seen the difference between both checked exception and unchecked exception. Now I will create one more method. Now I will create one more class to understand the method of exception. Creating a class with the name of exception method. Now I'll use the same code. I'll copy and paste it from here. See, so this is a catch block. Now we are going to understand the method of exception. Let me write here methods of exception class. So there are many methods in exception. If you see here, this is a super class of all the exception like arithmetic exception and null pointer exception, array out of bound exception. So this exception is a super class of all the exceptions. That's why I have declared here exception. Otherwise, you can give, if you are aware which kind of exception it is going to throw, then you can give the exception name here. Let's say it is going to give arithmetic exception. So here you can write arithmetic exception as well. Arithmetic exception. So this is the arithmetic exception. So if you want to see the methods of exception, see, these are the methods which are available under this exception class. So I will show you few of them which are important, which we can use. So I will show you first this E. If I am not using any of the method and directly printing this reference variable E, then it will show us this exception name and this description. If you use here exception only, then still it will give you the exception name, which kind of exception it is throwing here. So this is throwing arithmetic exception. So if you print this exception reference variable, then it will tell you the exception name and the description why this exception is occurring. Now we can use the method. Let's say I want to use e.toString method. So this toString method will also give you the same exception name and this description. See, it is also throwing the same exception, same description it is also giving. The exception name and the description. I will use another method, sysout e.getMessage. So this get message, it will print only description. It will not print the exception name. So see, if you use this reference variable, then it will print the exception name. Let's say it is arithmetic exception. So whatever the exception will occur, it will print the exception name and the description why it is occurring. Same toString method, it will also print the exception name and the description. And if you use this get message method, then it will print only description. But if I use this method, e.print stack trace method, then this method will give you the exception name, description, and stack trace. Stack trace means the line number of code where exception is occurring. So if I run this program, then see the output. See. So this print stack trace method is giving us exception name, exception class name, and the description why it is occurring and where it is occurring. Where it is occurring, it is giving the class name and the line number of code. The line number of code, it is saying it is occurring at the line number of 8. See. So I would suggest to use this method, because I used to use this method, because this method is telling everything. The line number of code, where exception is occurring, and the exception class name and the description. So it is giving all three things. Let me write it. It is giving exception name, second description, and third stack trace. Means line number of code where exception is occurring. And these two is telling us only exception name and the description. And this one, the get message, it will print only description. it will print only description. So I have showed you these methods. If you use this reference variable, it will print this exception name and description. If you use this toString method, it will again print this exception name and description. If you use this get message method, then it will print only description why it is occurring. But if you use this print stack trace method, then it will give you proper message, meaningful message. Means exception, class name, description, and stack trace means the line number of code where exception is occurring. So this is the method of exception. Now I will create one more class. Now we are going to understand one single try block and multiple catch block. So single try with multiple catch. I will create one main method. So mostly interviewer ask, can we use multiple catch block along with single try block? So yes, we can use. So let me write one simple code I am creating. So I am creating an object. Let's say I want to store only 5 digit. But I am going to store the value at index 6 is equal to, let's say I want to store. So after dividing these two number, whatever the result will be there, I want to store at the index of 6. So see here, as we know, here exception can occur. This is not a checked exception because compiler is not able to check, but it will throw at the runtime. So see, I have declared only 5 index so that we can store only 5 values. But I want to store the value at index 6, which is not possible. So here it will throw an exception. So I know here it is going to throw an exception. So I will keep this code under this try block. So after try, we will have to use catch block. So let's say I want to give here exception first, or here I am dividing two numbers. So maybe it can occur arithmetic exception. So if you don't aware that what kind of exception it is going to throw, then you can use multiple catch. Let's say I don't know what kind of exception it is going to throw. Else here it can throw multiple exception. Not one exception, it can throw multiple exception. It can throw out of bound exception, it can throw arithmetic exception, right? So it can occur multiple exception. So first, let's say I am dividing two numbers. So maybe it can throw arithmetic exception. So I will use here arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception A, right? And here I can print some number. Sys out. We are giving some meaningful message. Arithmetic exception is occurring. Now we can use another catch block. And here let's say I want to say maybe I have declared only 5 index, but I am storing the value at index 6. So it can throw an exception array index out of bound exception. So let me write here array index out of bound exception. Array index out of bound exception. So let me print some meaningful message. Here we can say array index out of bound exception is occurring. We can say if both the exception got handled, then if I want to print some message to see whether these exception got handled or not. Then if it is handled, then it will print this hello message, else it will not be executed. So let's run this program. See what it is saying. See, arithmetic exception is not occurring, since if we divide 20 by 2, then result we will get 10, right? So arithmetic exception is not occurring. What kind of exception is occurring? It is occurring array index out of bound exception. So this catch block is being executed and it is giving this proper meaningful message. It is saying array index out of bound exception is occurring, and since this exception got handled, it is printing hello message as well at the end. So along with this one try block, we can use multiple catch block. So far we have seen method of exception, one single try block with multiple catch block we have seen, and we have seen checked exception, unchecked exception, right? In the next session, we will understand the finally block. I hope you understand. If you have any question, then you can ask me in the comment. I will reply. Thank you guys.